Brilliant. Welcome to the workshop. I'm hoping it's going to be a very interactive workshop. And because it's going to be an interactive workshop, Kevin, before we started recording and before people started arriving, you actually asked me a question, didn't you? You said, so can you remember what the question was you asked me?
Yeah, well, I was just going to say, have you actually got any slides to share? Because I forgot to run through this because we normally do these speaker checks to make sure there's no technical glitches. So I haven't seen these in advance. So have you got anything you can present today, mate?
The answer is no, I haven't, because I thought the first thing to do would be to let AI create some slides for us. So this is about refining prompts for impactful results. So why don't we let the AI generate some? Okay, so it's now giving us an outline for the presentation it's going to generate for us, and now I'm going to hit generate, and it's going to go off and create some slides for us. Now, of course, these are complete tosh, and they will probably bear I would expect them to bear a 25 to 30% resemblance of what it is I'm actually planning to do. But I just wanted to make the point that the days of sort of going, oh, I'm starting with a blank deck, or the other one used to be, I'm going to borrow the least worst deck from all the other decks I've got and then modify it. Those days are starting to come to a little bit of an end now, because we have got tools like this one, which is Gamma, that allow us to just give it a starting topic and then go back and actually create a starting point set of slides. So great tools available. We are focused on LLMs today and ChatGPT. So the first thing I want to do is I just want to cover off a couple of the basics, just so that we're all at the same level. So the objectives that I've got for today are, I'm going to show you and demonstrate how to progressively improve prompts when you're working with a large language model, and how you then get the large language model to ask you clarifying questions. And then what I want to make sure is that you leave with some sort of action plan that you've worked on. So today, the sort of topic that I'm going to use as my example, if you want, is I'm actually going to use a topic of developing a career as a woman in tech. So that's the topic I'm going to be using to do my illustrations with. But you can pick any sort of topic where you want to go from a relatively naive approach with your LLM to asking it to do more and more refined answering. One of the best ways that I've heard these tools referred to, LLMs referred to, is if you're on a free version of one of these, if you're on a free version of ChatGPT, if you're on a free version of Perplexity or one of the other tools, think about that as almost like having your 12-year-old child at work with you. They're going to be really energetic and really, really, really happy to help. But what they provide for you might not be that useful.
I have a 12-year-old child, so that's pretty scary. Pretty scary idea.
There you go. If you've got a paid version of these tools, then what I would say is regard it almost like the naive intern in the business. So it's going to be much more structured. It's going to give you much more appropriate responses, but they will still need fact checking and they will still need your expertise bringing to them. So even the paid versions, and I've got a friend who works over at Amazon AWS, and he coined a phrase that I use consistently when it comes to these LLMs. He said, what they're great for is doing the undifferentiated heavy lifting. That's the work that these LLMs will do for you. They will do the undifferentiated heavy lifting that then allows you to bring your expertise to bear in getting to the right answer more quickly. So what we're talking about here is augmentation of your skills, not replacement of your skills. But like any tool in your toolkit, there are ways of working with them. And that's what we're going to focus on today, ways that we can work with that, with the tools in the toolkit. So that's my objective, is to show you how we can work with a continually refining set of prompts. And just before we jump into that, the first thing is that I want to sort of say is we talk a lot about AI, and the use of LLMs and AI is becoming almost interchangeable. But LLMs are merely one element of AI. There are lots and lots and lots of other ways of implementing and working with AI out there. And some of you may already be working with those things, you know, machine learning and various other things. But I think what LLMs are rapidly becoming is they're becoming the interface into other forms of AI. So actually, if we can learn how to drive an LLM well, we'll learn how to get the best out of other AI tools as well. So for me, the LLM is becoming the steering wheel that we'll get used to that allows us to drive any car. That's where I'm seeing them. And what we need to think of LLMs are the best text prediction service on the planet. They are effectively souped up versions of the predictive text that you've got on your phones. That's what an LLM is. It looks at patterns, it looks at frequencies, and it looks at what is likely to go best in the next phrase or sentence and what it should give you back. So for example, it knows that if you use the word cute, you're more likely to put dog than spanner after cute. So if you ask it to tell you about a cute spanner, you'll notice it will pause for longer than if you ask it to tell you about a cute dog. So it's really, just think of it as predictive text on steroids, because that's what it is. So what we're going to do today is we're going to talk about this wonderful thing that's come into existence called prompt engineering. And that's it's a very straightforward. So what is prompt engineering? Prompt engineering is the idea of creating these quasi-structured inquiries that mean that you get the most out of working with your LLM. So I want to ask a quick question, and you can all type your answer in the chat if that's okay. On a scale of 1 to 10, where 1 is hate it, absolutely rubbish, 10 is I think I'm the bee's knees, how happy are you with the results that you get using your LLM? So how happy are you with the way that you're working with your LLM at the moment? 1 would be I'm rubbish at it, and 10 would be I actually get optimal results all the time. So can we do that just as a quick poll? Put your answer in the chat, and then we'll get a feeling for where the group is at as a group, and that allows me to tailor my response accordingly. So we've got some 7s, a 5, 6. 2 doesn't seem to do what I'm asking it to do. That's fair enough. 5, 6. Rachel, if you are on a free version, that can often be one of the challenges with that. They are intentionally more stupid. So
it's kind of our work version of Copilot. I'm assuming it wasn't free, but yeah, anyway, we'll go with that.
Okay, brilliant. So it looks like I've got quite an experienced group. We've got a couple of people, so we've got some people who are just starting to explore. That's great. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with a fairly basic prompt. I'd urge you to come up with something that you want to develop as we go forward. I'm going to use ChatGPT purely because it's a recognized environment. And I'm going to ask ChatGPT a very basic question. What challenges do women face in tech? Tell me the answer to that, please, ChatGPT. So it's now beautifully mansplaining to me the challenges that women face in tech. So gender stereotypes, lack of representation, workplace culture, pay gaps, imposter syndrome, lack of career support, work-life balance, harassment and discrimination, career advancement, and limited networking opportunities. Look at that, magically, it's almost like someone should create a network to overcome all those things, or to help women to work through their challenges and get help with that sort of stuff. I just think someone should step up and create some sort of network that does that, really. Now, we've already seen here that a basic response has given me a great starting point, hasn't it? So if I needed to now give that to or put that into a document or summarize it into a couple of slides, I could take that content, I could drop it into one of my other tools and say, create me some slides based around these themes. Most people will tell you, well, I could have got to that answer myself. So in this case, when you're using a basic prompt, it's not about you learning anything. It's about you saving time. So my advice is think about the complexity of the prompt based around two things. How much support do I need to create whatever it is I'm going to create? And how much do I want my own thinking challenged as a result of going through the process? Yeah, so what support do I need? What don't I know that I don't know? And also, what do I know that I want challenging? And that's always a good starting point for the prompts. So I should imagine we're all fairly happy with the concept of that. It's a fairly basic, straightforward prompt, and it allows us to get a fairly straightforward answer. Yeah. Brilliant. So from that perspective, where do you go from there? Where do we actually go from there? And this is where I want to sort of spend the majority of the workshop, really. One of the things I could do is I could give this a persona. I could give this chat a persona. So what I could say is, as a career coach, or even better, as an experienced career coach in tech. And then I might choose to actually say I want to make that slightly more specific, especially if, like me, you are coming from a non-technical background. So I've now given it a persona. I've asked it to become a career coach. So again, give me a yes in the interactive text box if you already are familiar with the idea of giving your GPTs personalities or personas. Okay, so one of the things you could do is, if you get hit upon a persona that you like, that you want to work with, you can actually, one of the things that I often do is think, well, actually, what could I do? What could I do with that? So we've now said as a career coach, that's great. What I'll do is I will take that and I'll now enhance that persona. And one of the things I'd encourage you to do is, whether you keep it in a text file or whether or not you've got your LLM gives you the ability to keep side notes, as you develop personas, keep adding little bits into them and then put them somewhere you can copy and paste them quickly into your chat. So just keep adding to and refining the persona so you continue to get improved results out of it. So, so now, as an experienced career coach with experience in IT and the pharmaceutical industry, give me that answer. So, and the beauty is, as you keep increasing that persona, you can just literally copy and paste it from your notes at the start. So again, being in the pharmaceutical industry may not change this very much. I picked an industry at random. And of course, the beauty is as you're developing a prompt, if that didn't work, you don't add it back into your persona. You just move to something else. So personas, one way of improving your prompts, one way of improving your prompts. If you know that there is a specific thing that you've got a challenge with, ask it a very specific question. So, for example, I'm going to give this, I'm not going to rely on a persona here. I'm just going to ask a very specific question here. So I need help improving any technical communication skills as I transition into leadership. So again, if you ask a general question, you'll get a general answer like the ones up here. But if you ask a specific question, you will get very specific answers. Now, there's all sorts of stuff out there, and some of it is snake oil, saying, oh, you must have a structured framework for the way that you work with your LLM. So there are someone's got a 5-point model where you always start with this, you always do this, you always do that. My experience has been those frameworks are really good if you've got rigid, specific types of answers you want to get to. The whole idea of these sorts of LLMs, the title is in the clue is in the title, chat GPT. What it wants is it wants to get into a conversation with you, because really it's about you enhancing your thinking. And then it reflects, as your thinking develops, it reflects more refined answers back to you. So what do I mean by that? Now, one of the reasons I've used ChatGPT is because there's a model available under ChatGPT. You can choose different models. The model I'm using at the moment is 4.0 with Canvas. And the reason I've used Canvas is because it's got this Canvas, 4.0 with Canvas has got this feature. So I can basically say, summarize the key points you have raised and put them into a table with an action plan for me to work on. I'm going to stop it there because it's done exactly what I asked it to. I'm going to say, please put the plan into a document we can work on. Oh, that's a shame. Look at that. Like all good demos, it's just gone wrong. So let me try again. Summarize the key points so giving it the whole prompt helps. There we go. So now what it's done is it's moved our chat to the side, and it's actually built a document that we can work on together. And I can save that as a PDF if I want, or I can literally highlight it. These actually highlight and copy and paste very well into Word. So now it's got an action, give me an action plan for improving my technical communication skills. If we're into structured prompting, one of the things that I've got into the habit of doing is asking my LLM, what don't I know? So one of the ways I do that is I'll ask it to tell me, are there any other questions I should be raising with you to help me in my development?
Have you seen a couple of questions that have come through, Steve, around
No, I've missed them. So go on.
So there's a question around whether this report you've been given, is that exportable in any way so that you've got a downloadable thing you can take away?
So I tend to highlight them and copy and paste them into Word documents is the way that I do them.
Cool. And is any of the stuff you've shown today only available on the paid version, or is this available for the free ones? And if not, do you think it's worth investing in a paid LLM?
To be honest, I think it is worth investing in a paid LLM. I will come back to if you've got a limited budget, where should you spend it? I'll come back to that towards the end of the workshop, if that's okay. But as you can see, I've now asked it. So feedback from colleagues. So request feedback is in there. So that's quite an interesting one. Request feedback. So now it's added into the canvas. Here's an email I could send out to my colleagues. So I asked it to tell me what I'd missed. It told me some things. I went, yeah, that's actually valid. And I said, right, can you help me do that now then, please? And this is why it's called chat. Because this is the way you develop your thinking if you were chatting with a colleague. And how many of you have actually said to a colleague, I just want to talk something through with you, not because I expect you to know something about it, but just because I know that talking it through is going to help me. And that's the way I would recommend that you think about these tools. Think about this thing is there. It's always going to try and please you. So effectively, it's the electronic equivalent of a puppy. It's always going to try and please you, but you can ask it to challenge you, and you can ask it to think about things that you haven't thought about. So I'm hoping that what you're also doing is you're trying some of this out while you're in your own LLMs. So I've done some examples. Have a think about how, from the opening question that you put into your LLM, have a couple of minutes now and think about other questions you could be asking it based on that first response it's given you. We'll just take a minute while you go into your LLM and have a think about how you create a complex or start to make the query with your LLM a bit more complex. So here's a here's another technique that I've sort of learned that's helped. Sometimes what I really want is I want to give a list of things in a semi-structured order, and I want it to then give me advice back. So framing this around a career coach in the world of IT, I'm going to do the same thing. What I'm doing here is I'm using Shift and Enter to put myself on a new line without actually submitting it to the GPT. So I'm effectively just going to keep hitting Shift and Enter and putting bullet point list points in. So here I've given it a prompt where I've started off with a persona, I've given it a list of bullet points, and then I've said, if you need to ask me any questions before you give me advice, please feel free to ask them. So here it's now asking me to qualify some things. You can go back and answer that. And the easiest way of doing that is just literally the shift and return thing. So 1, no technical experience. 2, I'm going to be as vague as possible here. 3, so now I've given it answers to its questions. Now, I could choose to go back into the build me a table with an action plan. That would be one way to progress from this. Or I could just ask it another question. So how do I find a company that might help me to do this as my employer? So So it's now gone and it's going to update this document. It's now updated my action plan. If I wanted that in a new document, I could have said, can you combine your advice on companies into a new document? And then it would have given me that in a separate document. Are there any questions? Have I missed any questions, Kevin? I'm sorry, I might have.
No, I think it's just comments around what people were actually doing in their
Okay.
model.
So from a structured perspective, it is much more. It's this combination of being semi-structured and semi-structured and semi-open. It's learning the best way to sort of move between that. And again, don't forget to frequently say, is there anything we may have missed that I should know about? Just ask some open questions partway through to see if there's anything it's come up with. And again, be prepared to read it. So, because it could take you down any one of a number of alleys blind alleys. So, or any number one of explorable alleys. So, you know, it might say stuff here that you just don't care about. Like, oh well, you know, I don't really care about understanding development tools and processes at this moment, or I don't understand about, you know, what work-life balance. I've told you I've got 2 kids, I've got a young family, and I'm already working. So, but it could take you somewhere down a list like this, like, you know, women who code. So mentoring and coaching, certifications. So, you know, certifications I like the idea of. So what are the top 3 certifications available online? So I've asked it, you know, oh, that's interesting. Let's explore what certifications I could get. So as you can see, I've used a whole combination of things here. I've used everything from a straightforward open question, very simple thing just to get the ball rolling. And sometimes I will do that, even if I think I know where I'm going to go, I might just start with a very straightforward question just to start to get my brain flowing and seeing what the first response I get is. I then move from that to being a bit more structured. The idea of using the idea about asking these bullet point lists using Shift and Enter so you can actually clarify bullet points. There is some debate about whether or not you should tell your LLM to be careful. So, for example, so, you know, I've seen one theory out there that says, you know, if you tell it, please read every word of this prompt before responding, it will then go, oh, I need to be careful here. But actually, that's not true. That's not true. It is a predictive model. It will use statistical analysis to actually come up with what it thinks is the best response for you. So from that perspective, if you're using general LLM tools like ChatGPT and Claude and Copilot, no matter how careful you tell it to be, it will use statistical analysis. It will lie to you. So if you, I don't know if you've ever asked it to give you information on something. I do a lot of work in something called Sophia, which is all about defining roles. and Sophia has got effectively a framework with 146 predefined skills in it. I often use the tool to help me come up with, I'll give it a job description and say what Sophia skills are the most relevant skills. And it's good in one way because it just quickly and speedily goes through, the whole 146 skills and comes back with the 5 or 6 most relevant ones. However, sometimes when it reads the job description, it'll go, no, Sophia hasn't got a skill for that. I'll make one up. I'll hallucinate. and it'll come back with a 4-digit, a realistic looking 4-letter code for a skill that does not exist in the Sophia framework. So even if you say to it, and I have said to it on multiple occasions, please don't hallucinate. You can only use the reference documents that I've provided to you. Please do not hallucinate. Within an hour, it'll be hallucinating again. And that's because this isn't a machine learning model. It's a large language model. So this isn't your GPT does not allow you to correct it on the fly. They're starting to work with that now. They're starting to give them what they're calling short-term memories, where you can effectively set a set of variables or give it some frames of reference that it must refer to. Oh, pardon? Did someone raise a question then?
It sounded like it was coming from Indeedy's mic, but I suspect it was an accident.
Okay. So yeah, so you're starting to see the next development in LLM is actually getting into these short-term memories where you can give it a bunch of parameters and guide rails and say, for everything that you're going to produce for me, always refer to these guide rails, always use these parameters. And you're starting to see that develop now. But don't be surprised if, even if you tell it you want only factual answers, it still tries to hallucinate to give you something that it thinks is right. So, for example,
the best example I've heard of that, Steve, was I went to the Freeman Clark session with the lecturer from Oxford Uni, and he asked it to give us a personal bio for him. And after 3 attempts, it found the right him because there's multiple people with his name. And then it told him that he had done his postdoc at Cambridge Uni, and he'd never been to Cambridge Uni. And he worked out that it's because the majority of Oxford Uni lecturers have been to an Oxford Uni. So the standard, typical postdoc has taken place at Cambridge. So because he didn't know the answer, it just inserted that line of information about him.
So he was most likely to be the cute puppy.
Yeah.
And that's exactly that example, isn't it? Puppy often comes after cute. Cambridge University often comes after people who work in that area.
Yeah.
And it's exactly that sort of statistical analysis. So, and if you want to prove it's there to help you, and it's more about helping you than actually giving you the facts, I'm going to actually force it now. What I'm going to say to it is, so here I'm going to purposefully tell it I'm not happy. But I'm going to be very vague. So I think there are several gaps in the information you've provided. Please reconsider and address the gaps. So now, rather than go, actually, no, I told you what I told you, it's going to apologize, and then it's going to provide me some output. But guess what it's done? It's provided me the same. So for example, if I say something about now I know that QA don't give free training. So it's now going to lie to me in order to make me happy. You're absolutely right, QA. But no, it's ignored now because QA training often stands for quality assurance, not QA the company. So it will bend over backwards to try and make you happy rather than give you the right answer, even if it's going to make you sad. And you should always bear that in mind with your LLM. Always. So I guess what I'm saying is structure. The way you can avoid this is actually start with a very open question, build structure, pursue specific lines of questioning as it gives you novel things that you hadn't considered, but always sit there with the view that it's going to try and please you. A lot of these only use my method, only use my framework, I find very, very limited. So you'll get people out there who are selling $1,000 courses on, I've got the 5-point, structured prompt. And quite frankly, any structure will beat no structure. And be prepared yourself to break complex questions down into simpler statements. Now, the reason I'm going to start a new chat here, and I'm going to show you here, there's another model called O1 in ChatGPT. And O1 is actually better at handling complex questions. So one of the things with O1 is you can actually give it a more complicated paragraph of information rather than having to give it individual questions and then develop on. So they are reviewing this, but notice that you can't get O1 with Canvas at the moment. So I can get O with Canvas if I want to create documents, and I can get O1 without Canvas. But at some point, O1 will come with Canvas. That brings me on to if I need to pay for a tool, which tool should I pay for? Questions. What I'm going to do is I'm going to walk you through. Effectively, I'm sharing my browser, so you should see I've got ChatGPT. ChatGPT, great tool, £20 a month, $20 a month, gets you pretty much as you need. You can give it documents if you want to get it to scan read a document. You can again, can't do that in preview. You can do that in 4.0. So you can give 4.0 a document, or you can give it a link to a website, or give it the permission to search the web. Just be aware, as soon as you use the search the web option, you're now not talking to a standard LLM. What you're really talking to is an LLM that's going to get modified by any rubbish it finds in search engine feedback. So I actually find that allowing my LLM to search the web, unless I'm asking for new things that I've never seen before, I find that allowing my LLM to search the web actually degrades its performance, because I'll get all sorts of rubbish introduced into my answers. So if I'm looking for new information or new stuff that I'm not trying to augment my thinking on, I'll turn it on. If I'm working with something where I want it to challenge and build my thinking, then I'll turn it off. So ChatGPT, great for, as I said, those sorts of chats where you might want to create a document, or they've now given you the ability to create an image. So I've told it, create me an image of a cute puppy, and it's going to go off and create me one now. So they've added image generation into part of the tool. So there you go, there's a cute puppy. So Claude is from Anthropic. Again, great interface, but we're starting to see a split between ChatGPT and Claude and Anthropic now, between OpenAI and Anthropic. The split we're seeing is Claude is releasing lots of new functionality, but it's making it available via the API for significant periods first. So what that says, without saying anything, is actually we want to work with developers who want to build our functionality into their tools. So you will see stuff that's available in the API available in Claude, but it usually comes a good 3 to 4 months after it's been available in the API. So ChatGPT, try and get stuff into the user interface as quickly as they can. OpenAI with ChatGPT. Anthropic with Claude, focus on you're a developer, and we want to give you really cool functionality that you can build into your front end or into your tool. Gemini, part of Google's tool set. Then you've got Perplexity. Perplexity is actually quite good from a coding perspective, and it's also quite good from a trying not to hallucinate perspective. There is a tool that I will mention purely because I've got an interest in aggregation. So what this tool is instead of buying OpenAI for $20 and buying Anthropic for $20 and then buying another one, I can pay one amount here to what's called an aggregator. So the one that I'm familiar with is called Text Cortex. And I pay my $20 to them, and then I get to pick not only from some pre-built personas. So here I've got various personas that are already pre-built. I can add my own personas if I want to create a persona and save it. I can tell it which LLM I want to work with, and it gives me a choice of the popular ones. What I can also do with that is I can start chatting with one GPT and then partway through the conversation switch to another GPT if I wanted to check the homework of the other one. I can say whether or not I want it to have connection to the internet and or just specific parts of the internet or just a specific website, which can be useful. And I can add knowledge bases. Knowledge bases are where I can upload clumps of files and refer to that knowledge base and say, use that knowledge base as your source of reference for our conversation. So I get a few advantages by using this aggregator. I get the advantages of the personas that I can choose from and create that are stored for me. I get multiple of the LLMs. I get the ability to choose how my internet connection works, and I get the ability to create my own guardrails knowledge base by giving it documents. And that costs me about, I think that's about 20 quid a month. But again, you're not going to get all the bang up to date features on day one from the other channels. So when 4.01 was released by ChatGPT, it took about a month before it was available in the aggregator. So, but aggregators, if you're not sure which one you want to pick to work with at the moment, aggregators are a good way of giving you a choice across the board. So, and then we get onto some of the other ones. So you've got, as I said, Perplexity. This one's good. If you're Neurospicy or you know any Neurospicy people, Goblin Tools is fantastic. So if you want help creating a task list, so I'm just going to give it a very basic function. I need to move house. I'm going to add that to my list. And then I'm going to say, right, create me a to-do for that, please. And it's going to go, right, here's all the things you need to do. And if I'm really Neurospicy and I need lots of help, I can up the scale. I can say, no, my executive function is really poor. I need lots of help. I'm really Neurospicy. Or actually, I'm, nearer to neurotypical, so I only need a bit of help. I can mark myself as less Neurospicy. And then the other advantage is you can go, do you know, that sounds really interesting. Clean your current home before moving out. I haven't got a clue where to start with that. Can you create me a list for that, please? And now it's created me a sub list of all the things that I need to do to make sure the house is clean before I move out. And you can just keep adding that, and you can create. I can create a new item, add new lists, and I can expand it anyone. And it's also got some other tools around. So basically, I've got this thing I want to say. I want to say it in a more formal, more professional way. Can you do that for me, please? This is completely free, this tool, by the way. So I've got this statement, but I know I come across a bit flat. So can you make it more passionate? So it's got a bit more passion in it as a statement. I know I sound a bit snarky, so can you make me sound a bit less snarky? Or I know I come across as flat, can you make me sound a bit more sarcastic, please? So, so various tools. If you're into creating images, Midjourney is a good one to work on. Midjourney is a good one because you can create lots and lots of images and you can get to adjust the styles. So here's all sorts of stuff that's been created on Midjourney. Notebook LLM, sorry, is getting quite a lot of attention at the moment. So basically, you can upload a fairly big document. You can give it quite happily give it a 500-page report, and then say, generate me a briefing or generate me various other things. And one of the things that's really interesting about this one is you can actually give it a document and say, can you actually create me a podcast of this, please? And on this one, I actually did that, and I got it so this is a business plan for a business. I said, right, this business is going to need to generate some investment at some point. So what would that sound like? What would that sound like? And actually, I got it to generate a podcast, and the podcast is so good, I can't play it, unfortunately. I think if I play it, you won't hear it. But effectively, the podcast is two hosts talking over the business plan, saying what a great opportunity that the fitness truck is. So you could literally give it your business annual report and say, create me a 15-minute podcast of what's in our business's annual report this year. And it'll go off and do it for you. So, and Napkin's another one of those unusual little tools. So if I give it something simple like the stages of change and how to deal with them. It's now going to create me a napkin presentation. That's what they're called, napkin presentations. And I'm going to say, oh, actually, that one, can you do me a bit of a drawing about what pre-contemplation looks like? And yeah, we might as well have one for contemplation. And it's I don't want it to look like a cartoon. I like it to be a bit more like that. Or yeah, so here are the stages. So yeah, we'll go with that. Thanks, Bill. And then I quite like the colour as it is, so we'll leave it like that. Thank you. That's great. So sorry, I should have left that in there. Or contemplation. So okay. So that's put contemplation into place. Yeah, we'll have one for preparation. It'll go off and draw me a picture for what preparation looks like. So if you like to create or add nice infographics into your presentation, Napkin will quite happily, you give it some text and it will quite happily create you some infographics to build into your presentation. And then the last one is if you're into things like, if you like to create proper infographics, it could be, you might want to give it something like how to do structured prompting in an LLM. And that will actually go off and here, while it's generating that, here are some infographics that have been created by people. So what are the benefits of meditation? What are sources of pollution? So there you go. So now it's created me a basic infographic. So we're bang on time, but I'm quite happy to answer any questions that anyone who's managed to stay the whole hour might have. As I say, I haven't got one of these snake oil 5-point structured prompt plans to sell somebody. As I say, my experience has been they get you the same sort of answers every time. Structured prompting is about starting with open questions, then refining, using a mixture of tools and techniques, remembering a conversation. And at the end of the day, don't be frightened to ask it, what haven't I asked about that I need to know about? That can often be the hardest one because we all have egos and we like to think we know our topic.
The thing I like about using it, Steve, is you don't have to write the perfect prompt to start with. Whereas if you're making a request to a human, you need to think about, are they going to understand what I've asked them to do? How do I make sure they don't misinterpret it, etc.? Because it's really awkward to tell somebody they misunderstood what you've asked them to do. Whereas with this, you ask it to do something, it comes back, you can see that it's not quite right, and you say, no, you're wrong, this is what I meant, and it'll fix it straight away. So in terms of that awkwardness around outsourcing tasks to other things or people, I think it's a really easy way to do it.
Yeah, it's for me, I think we have to relearn how to chat and how to chat. And some of our chats are structured and some of them are unstructured, and sometimes we mix them both when we're having a good chat. So, did someone raise a question?
Oh, that was me, Steve. Thank you.
Yeah.
I think I'm going to take away your point about questioning, using ChatGPT to question itself and say, what have I missed from my prompts? I think that's a really valuable one. I think I don't usually do that. I just take what it says and that's it. I don't question it using its own self. So I think I'm going to do that. And I'm going to tweak my personas, I think, to add more description and make sure. It's been really useful. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Kevin, for organizing it as well. Thank you.
Fatima.
Yeah.
You're on mute, Fatima.
Okay, it's now. Thank you very much for the presentation. I really liked it. I know, for example, when I'm using ChatGPT, for example, I try to define a scope and then refine the questions along the way. But for example, while implementing or trying to integrate the GPT-4 model or another model in a project that I did, I already integrated the OpenAI API into projects that I developed. And in that case, while I'm preparing the prompts, I don't have the opportunity to, or at least I try to make the prompts as smaller as possible due to the tokens. And in that case, I tried several things, and I learned that defining a scope, making the prompts very structured, leave all the restrictions well defined and the role and all of that. In one of the projects that I developed, which is AI Task Manager, where, for example, user can add a task and all the information related to that, and also a category and a priority. And then it can also add the goals. And the goals have categories and are monthly goals in that case. So the goal is to help the user align their tasks with goals that he defines. And what I do is basically I send all the tasks for that period that is going to be analyzed, and also the goals that the user set. And the output that I expect is for the model to assign a tag for the goal, saying this needs improvement or this is accomplished or another one, and also provide recommendations. So when it comes to have a specific output, I managed to get good results because I explain it. The problem is with the recommendations. So I try to give some examples. Sometimes I guess it works better. However, the results are not very consistent. For example, if I run the analysis several times, sometimes I have the results with the quality I expect, and sometimes they are very short. So I end up with a situation where I don't know if I give him more freedom, he's able to give me better recommendations, but sometimes he starts doing or giving an output that it's not what I want, or restricting too much, and then I don't have that.
I understand the challenge. Can I just say, just for purposes, I've got to step off the call, but Fatima, I absolutely understand what the challenge is. Can we organise a private call one-to-one? Because it's a very specific solution and a very specific approach. but I can help you with that. We just need to organise a one-to-one conversation around it.
Okay, that would be great. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Thank you.
Kevin, I am time restricted, so I do have to step off the call.
No, you've already exceeded expectations, Steve. Thank you very much.
So if anyone does want to connect, let me know. You've got my name. You can find me on LinkedIn. I'm the only Stephen Houghton Burnett on LinkedIn. Connect with me, message me, ask any questions you want.
Thank you, Steve.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank you very
Kevin.
much.
Bye.
Thank you, Steve.
Bye.
Thanks so much.
Bye.
Cheers for attending. Bye. Cheers, Steve.